Dear colleagues, dear organizers, I thank you to invite me for such a special thing to speak about not the translation, but the the preceding activities of a teacher. And so I'll show you what we do. We have a team speaking about this, and there is some psychological basis to make people, you are sure that they understand the text. For instance, we take a good level as B2, for instance, or even C1. They know the topic, but how to translate it in a good Russian language. We propose such a methods of a preceding discussion, making your memory work in a special thing. Because, you know, normally when we see translations nowadays, we see that the first meaning of each word, it's the first thing coming in the head of the translator, and it's wrong. That's why I will propose you this explanation, a little explanation. And I'll start with the very obvious thing, precision words. When we are in a simultaneous or any kind of oral translation, and we have a team, one person is translating, and the second one person is just fixing their precision words, because they are in a very good number when there is some good explanation, long explanation. That's why we take such a proceeding. Look, the London Eye and TripAdvisor reviews of what to see in London. Is it something more obvious and more amusing? So we have two words of precision words, Thames and the London Eye. For Thames, I can tell you that once I was in an excursion, and the group was an American group. And the guide was quite a London guide, a little bit sad, because he spoke a normal English, but he knew that Americans do not know how to pronounce the name of river. The river Thames for them is Thames or Thames and not Thames. So he, before showing Windsor, before showing all kind of beautiful things about London, he just 3 or 4 times pronounced their name, Thames. Okay, for this, Russians are very ready. We know how to pronounce this name. But now we approach one of the main curious thing in London, the London Eye. And we have to translate it for Russians. Look on the left. Normally, it's up to you to choose one of the 3 things. Or well, you say the word glass, which is not really very beautiful, but it's a proper translation, of course. Or well, you say Londonское око. Okay. Or well, because it's not okay for other translators, we shall find колесо обозрения London Eye. And me, you know, I know that we must do it. We must pronounce колесо обозрения. I don't like it, but I think the third position is a very good one. Now, if we pass to 2 languages, French and English, because I teach French, and I compare English and French units, precision words, and we found that La Manche, it's the only one name in Russian that our students know. And English channel is the proper one if we read the English text. So look what we have, what we must do. We see OWL channel, OWL English channel, and we have to translate into Russian as La Manche. It's not easy. It's really not easy. And these last days, I found that La Manche is no more written in one word, but as you see here, there is the fis between La and Manche. It's already something. The same for La Rochelle. We are normally accustomed to make it in one word, but look at the Petrozavodsk place name, Набережная La Rochelle, and it's a new manner to write it. Another pair of languages, or well, I would say 3 languages together. It's Greek, Russian, and English. As you see, a week ago, well, less, we are starting some Hollywood film, The Bricklayer, in Thessaloniki. It's how it is written in Greek, it's how it is written in English, but we have a very big problem with Russian, place name. Why Saloniki? And even more, look at the accent, Saloniki. I do not know why in Wikipedia we see the Saloniki, and why there is no the at the beginning. The, it's a normal sound of the Greek language. One day, waiting for a plane, I asked to an airport servant why it is written Thessaloniki. She said, because it's in English. I said, and so what? It's an article, she said. Oh, no, it's not an article. As you see on the left, we have this name because of the sister of Alexander the Great, and her name is made from Thessalia plus victory. And then when Byzance was occupied by Turkish rulers, they couldn't pronounce this th indeed, and in Turkish it's Selanik. It's from this name that comes our Slavic form Solun. Why do we need this Solun? We can just pronounce Thessaloniki or well Saloniki. It's because of 2 great positions of this history. Demetrius of Thessaloniki, that we pronounce as Dmitri or Dimitri. It's one of the saints, very well known in Russia, very well loved in Russia, and we see that we have even Dmitrieva Subota, a special day, as in France we have the Day of All Dead, or well, we say all defuncts in the middle of autumn. And we have Cyril and Methody. They are also called in Russia Salunsky bratья. We have to understand it, and we have to introduce in this prior discussion, before speaking about this Hollywood film, all this information, making your students have a choice between today's Thessaloniki, how do we call it in Russian, Saloniki, and perhaps the Thessaloniki, because now we see that it's not an article, it's a part of the name of a tribe. And it was an ally of Greeks in this big battle. And I arrive at the biggest, perhaps the biggest point of my speech, what a presupposition is. You speak to your students before translating on the basis of a presupposition that you have something, some information, some data that you know together, the student and the teacher. What is this? If you train your students to find this information, you will see on your left that any kind of assertion or denial or question can be a trigger for a presupposition in the utterance. And what is more, if you say his wife is pregnant, or rather, his wife is not pregnant, it's the same speaking in the field of this presupposition. From this little sentence, we know that this is a male, that he is married, and perhaps his wife, it's also a supposition, presupposition, would like to have a child. What kind of presuppositions we can find in the mind of our students? Oh, well, encyclopedic. It's what I think is difficult to find, and we must enjoy ourselves if they know something very special about England, France, America, Germany, the countries of the language they know. It's the Francophone, Anglophone, or well, Germanophone presupposition. And of course, there is this contextual, I have shown you the first, and look at the second and the third sentence. When you have a new information, and who knows if the person who said it can understand that it was an information that you can use now. So when you say that a person no longer writes fiction, the presupposition of this first discussion is that Jane, this person, was a writer before, and she wrote fiction. If there is a question about Hans, it's one of the best idea of the policemen. They sometimes ask such things, and they know more about the relations of this person. Have you talked to Hans? So Hans exists in your life. I show you some names. It's Stephen Levinson, Pragmatics, Lauri Kartunen from Finland, as you understand, who made a list of such informations that we can get from an analysis of the sentence. And Vladimir Grigorievich Gak, I advise you vividly to read his, it's in Russian, his book about theory of French grammar, imagine, but it's not about French grammar, believe me, it's about the language as it is. And of course, you can find the Wikipedia page about presupposition. Well, encyclopedic presupposition. Okay, perhaps our students were good at school and they know what Авгиевы конюшни are in Greek mythology. But look on the left. There are already two means in English. And the first one includes corruption. And the second one has a connotation of an unpleasant task. Long, large, unpleasant. So if even when you speak with your students, they can have an idea of an audience table, you have to give them these means before reading the text, where, as you see, the author speaks about the Vatican financial scandal. Here we are already the both meanings, corruptions and the old style of Vatican administration, as you see, to clean out the audience table of the Secretariat of State's Administrative Office. Speaking about this, we have a little, really little additive idea that in English it's in singular and in Russian it comes from French and it's in plural. Now, one other part of precision words is this strange idea of geographic names having two meanings and two words today, because there were some important events connected with this geographic names. So, by chance, the Palatinate region in Germany became very famous 5 years ago. Trump, becoming president, met Angela Merkel, and Angela Merkel gave him a very pleasant gift. It was a gravure in gold and silver of his place of, well, an ancestor place, a very little town of Karlstad in Palatinate, or as it normal for Russian and for German, and the teachers of German will, of course, say it, yes, yes, yes. Now Russians say Pfalz, and even with some correction, Pfalz. But it was a campaign, a very known campaign, Palatinate campaign, and this gravure was made especially for such battle, Palatinate battle. So when it was done in 2016, and the German chancellor really pleased Trump with this gravure, it was a second step. As you see on the right, no Trumps live now in Karlstad. The population of this little place is of 1,200 people. But there is one relative with the same name. It's Ursula Trump. And she put a flag of the USA, and she started a new business. She made some cookies with the idea of Trump and the United States and Germany friendship. In the Palatinate dialect, Trump is pronounced as Droom. So it was not really pronounced, but we have to translate this article. It's important to find to make a choice. As you see, we can say that the gravure was a map Carta Palatinata in Russian, but when we speak about Ursula, it will be Pfalz in Russian, of course. So it would be two names of the same geographical place, historical and modern. There were some big festivities in 2018, 100 years of the armistice. And again, as it was a lot of articles written on this topic, we had to translate it because it was really the top one event in 2018. And how to translate it? You know, in Russia, we do not feel a big relief the 11th of November speaking about armistice, because we had a civil war afterward. And the armistice was just between Germany, only Germany, because all other allies of Germany was already beaten. And so between look attentively, the allies in Russian, and look at the right, Entente in Russian when we translate this name. We must find first, before translation, we discuss the situation, we remember the name of this alliance, and it's a French name meaning understanding. Entente, it's understanding. But how to translate the place? And as you see, in French, it can be not only the date, but the place, Compiègne. It's not far from Paris, in the north of France. And sometimes they say Armistice of Compiègne. Sometimes we have found even a mention about the railway station, Rotonde, where the train was put to sign documents. For Russian translation, we must keep the Compiègnское перемирие 1918. It is not other possibility of translation. In English, or well, in German, you can find different things, but for allies, I insist, first, before translating such texts, you have to remember your students that it was a name for this team. It was Entente. Now today we have some new names. So I mean that historical and geographic names must be discussed before translated. But when you have a new leader, for instance, here you have Kathleen, Courtney, and then the name, because Courtney is quite a normal Irish name. And this lady is a very known American lawyer and politician, and she is the governor of the New York state. And our official media discourse had a lot of mistakes. What to do, how to know when, and you propose to your students first, before speaking about her activities, before speaking about the governance, try to find a normal pronunciation and, of course, graphic form of her name. We cannot say Kathleen Courtney. We must pronounce the name of her husband. So we see that it's a difficult situation even for, of course, English-speaking people. That's why they put Hokel or Hokel, and they insist on the good pronunciation. As you see, Russian people made Хохул and Хачуль. And unfortunately, it comes because bad students know only one kind of pronunciation of CH, and I never forget a movie where the idea was to sell some medicine, and it was for stomach, and all Russian actors pronounce stomach because they thought that stomach it's a right pronunciation for stomach. They didn't know the good pronunciation of a Greek medical term. The same as you see here. They couldn't understand what Democrats are in Dems, and it's a normal abbreviation of an American political party. And so we must say, of course, Demokrate. And the second one, we must pronounce in a proper way the name of the governor. As you see, finally I found Katie Hochul, and it was a question for students. Let's prove that it's a good pronunciation. We have here Хохул, Хачул, and then Hochul. What is the right graphic? Sorry. And where is my, yes, so I just messed it. The xenisms, and the Hochul is the xenic word, must be deeply discussed. You find, as I found, the biography of her husband, and Bill Hochul, quite an American. He's junior. I mean that there was also another William Hochul, but I see that in Wikipedia he is of Romanian and Ruthenian sub-ethnic tribe of Carpats, and so the name Hochul comes from Gutsule. The Carpat people, they are not numerous, they are only 25,000, and as you see, we know their folklore dresses, and even we had a very popular movie of 1960 something, 68, Trembita, with a lot of music, with a lot of folklore humor. I could not see it because for me it's a little bit too old. But why not? Why not to see these Gutsul traditions? So it's Gutsul. It's Hochul in English. Return, excuse me, to the previous Xenism file, because one of the things that you must explain to your students before reading something about Asia, it's how to read the names coming from the Chinese language. First of all, you must understand, and you must say it to your students, that when it is not written in a Chinese signs, it must be written properly. We have a very good book of Yermolovich. I advise you really to find it. It's easy to find in the internet. And so English words with Chinese origin usually have different characteristics depending on how the word were spread into the West, despite the increasingly widespread use of standard Mandarin, so normal literary Chinese language. English words that are based on Mandarin are relatively few. So some words spread to the West came via missionaries, and missionaries in China were Portuguese and Spanish. Then came French scientists, and they wrote about China, and it is a French involvement in sinology, and that's how some part of words arrived. Then it was via the maritime trade route, and the number one Chinese word te arrived like this in French, in English, but not in Russian. We had another way to have chai, but it's not at all te. Of course, it's the same name, but we put it in another phonic way. So why te? Because there was a Amoy dialect in some seaports. And with this Amoy dialect, this word arrived, and we have written it like this. Then finally, it was, of course, the gold rush era. And coolie from China arrived as the early immigrant to the United States, and it was the Toisen dialect. Then it was the colonization of Shanghai. In Shanghai, the words that we took from this part of China was entered into many European countries as well as Japan. And that's why some kind of words are Japanized. Then via the British colonization of Hong Kong, and it's a Cantonese dialect. And finally, when in 1970s the bamboo curtain was opened and the modern China went to the world arena, we had, for instance, the very badly pronounced in Russian Feng Shui, and in English it would be, you can hear it, Feng Shui. And finally, of course, there are other names, other words coming through Japanese and Korean and Vietnamese, but they are still Chinese. The first idea, when you see a text with Chinese words, remember that the R of the words, it's not at all R, it's Zh. And that's how, when you see Ren Min Ribao, you must read Zheng Min Ribao. That's why I recommend you, before translating the text, go to Yermolovich's different books, because he made 5 or 7, I do not know. Each year he published a new book about the place names and the names. And on the left, please, you can see the 3 very known ones. Zen, and it's a Sanskrit or well Pali name coming to us through China, but it's not a Chinese word. But in Chinese, it's Chan. The name of the great wizard Confucius, Master Kong, and it's Kong Fu Zi in the text about China. And finally, just a special word, it was a leader against Mao, Chan. And then what? Kai-shek in French and English, and Kai-shi in Russian. All these names are suddenly found in a text with some, references on history, and you have to make an effort and you have to produce a good explanation for your students before reading text, not to make mistakes when translating. You prepare. Here it is. Oh, please, Natalie, come, please. I would like to show this video. Can you come, please? Just the second one here. Mm-hmm. What do I do? I try. Mm-hmm. Wait, please do it. No. Mm-hmm.
Words. We should tell you Dante is a retired police dog from Australia who used to specialize in sniffing out drugs. Here's his owner reading out a grocery list.
All right, shopping list: bread, milk, pasta, eggs, mayo, cocaine. Just kidding.
I watched it many, many times. First of all, I found the title of the article, where, as you see, I hope that you see, it is a Pavlovian response. The name was so dear to me because it spoke about Ivan Pavlov, our great scientist, that, of course, I was attracted, and then I understood what happened. An old dog was kept by a new owner. His name is Dante, and so this owner decided to make a joke. It was a bad joke, because from that moment, Dante didn't really believe to the new master. He pronounced just a shopping list: bread, milk, pasta, eggs, mayo, cocaine. Oh, at that moment, the dog was so serious. Before, he was listening for this shopping list, and he was looking through the window. It was a good weather, and then at that moment, as you see, it is a policeman who is looking for a criminal, and not just a dog and a friend of him. Rutherford, who was the new owner, was really afraid of such an expression on the face of this dog. But for me, it was much more. For many years, I collected all kinds of Russian words. They are not numerous, but I just collected them to see how they are assimilated in English and in French, of course, and Italian too. And in Italian, they are not very well assimilated, to tell the truth. And the only one word that we know used in Italian, it's staccano vista. And it's very bad. It's a person who showed to his chief that he is a good worker, but to tell the truth, it is not right. In France, its Russian culture is very well assimilated and known, but there is no really, I would say, excuse me, there is no really English culture. Australian, I do not know, New Zealanders, South African, And there is different words assimilated, Russian words assimilated in these cultures. For instance, in Australia and in Canada, the first one is Sputnik, because these two countries are in the space. They are the third and the fourth country to launch a satellite. But here, Pavlovian, with this blow in the center, was my favorite. I mean that the word Pavlovian, it's not a Russian word now. We do not say Pavlovsky. We do not say Pavlova. We can say Собака Pavlova, indeed, but you will never put such a metaphor to yourself. And in English, you can say Pavlovian comportment, Pavlovian response, Pavlovian answer, Pavlovian a lot of things to do, and conditioning, of course. And Pavlov, it's much more known in the world than in Russia. I attract your attention to this. So when you have such a text, or well, when you have such other ideas about the conditioning, as you see, conditioned response, in Russian, we must omit the Pavlov name. Russian culture, Russian linguistic culture, I mean, lingua culturams of Russia has no Pavlovian dog. But in English, just the contrary. My mouth begins to water. I hear a sign. I hear I am ready to eat, captivated like the dog I am, salivating shamelessly, as you can see in the middle of the right part of the slide. So a person in American and English culture, in Australian, in New Zealanders, in every culture, English-speaking culture, they see this experiment. As you see on the left, Pavlov's dogs had a surgically implanted cannula to measure salivation when they heard some signal. And it's in Ryazan, in the Museum of Ryazan, that you can find such photos. The idea is that for more than 100 years, from 1904, Pavlov is one of the first, as well as Darwin, as well as Freud, in the medical spheres. The idea of how we digest, how we are ready to eat, how we are prepared to make some dinner. So this idea is directly connected with this name. You must know it. And everybody can speak. For instance, it was another tycoon, it was another typhoon or uragan or something, tempest. And the first thing that American did, they went to a shop to buy toilet paper. The whole America laughed about this. They said it was really a Pavlovian response to buy toilet paper when your houses are under danger. Why toilet paper? And all the media discourse was full of Pavlovian conditioning at this moment. As you see on the right, 6:16:21, a person is just speaking about her granny, or well, aunt, auntie Alice's house, and it was Christmas, and she cooked a full day of cooking, and his mouth would begin to water. And about himself, I mean, he said a little Pavlovian, right? I prepared a special thing that cannot be explained in English, because we shall lose the idea. What a strange thing. I will speak English, of course, but you will read in Russian. The word apparatchik, it's one of the 60 words, Russian words, entering the world culture. But in English, if you take an Oxford dictionary, you will find only a functionary, a person with some authoritative power in Russia. Or, well, there is another meaning, but rarely used. It's a Russian spy in 50s, in the Cold War situation. In French, it's just the opposite. Who knows why? But the whole French-spoken, the whole French-speaking media discourse is full of the apparatchik. Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, every country of the Maghreb, Muslim culture are using this word. But look how. We have a lot of different words always existing in 2020s, but normally they are always connected with the Russian culture. By the way, yesterday it was the Sputnik Day, but it was the Gagarin Day. And as you see, in Russia, in the Museum of the Space Conquest, I found a bad mistake. As you see, they confounded the 12th of April and the 4th of October. They confounded this 1957, 57 and the 1961. And they wrote such a thing in the Moscow Guide rule page. I wrote to the director, Olga Filimonova, as you see, and they corrected this mistake. I would say that it's much more. Yesterday, I have found that Gagarin's name was written in a special list of big events of space conquest, because like Gagarin. Gagarin, it means that the journalist specialized in space events couldn't even remember the true name of the first cosmonaut. What is this? In French. So, apparatchik, of course, the first meaning it's about the USSR and some other countries of democratic countries of Europe. But look attentively. In the dictionary, we find pejorative, a member of appareil, so apparatus functioner. But as you see, first we see that the Minister of the Interior, the Minister of France, who is criticized, saying that he has a face of apparatchik, a tenure of apparatchik, a discourse of apparatchik, the ideas of apparatchik, etc., etc., etc. So it is a bad person. It's a critic. No, yes, of course it is. And as we see, there is a new theme entering the French name apparatchik, meaning luxury. Lagos caviar maastrichtienne, meaning the left wing of politicians with this luxury and having signed the Maastricht conventions. But the idea in English is now a career politician. And so Hillary Clinton called Bernie Sanders an apparatchik, a pure apparatchik. Denotative or connotative meanings. Connotative is just the luxury and all this. Denotative is just the function as it is. And as you say, a new one serving the Cardinal Barbarin, or a experienced one, an apparatchik, are described with the French or the Russian word. But there is a new, quite new movement in the semantic of this word. And little by little, it is entering the English language, but it's already plainly in French. It's a very good politician, knowing everything. For instance, here, a minister of health became afterward the first minister. So he was so experienced. He was an apparatchik, and it was very good for the results of this person. Finally, the first minister of France made a book, Edouard Philippe, with such words: I am an apparatchik, I am a warrior, I am serving my Lord, I am hands and ears and legs and sometimes the cerveau of a politician. So he served the president of France like this, and it's just the first page of his book. It's an effect, paradoxical effect, of a bad meaning becoming a very good meaning. And we see in Africa, speaking French, even a singer who called himself apparatchik. Even more, now this word is so modern, so attractive for media discourse that we have come to a replacement of a very well-known sentence from a movie of 30s, atmosphère, atmosphère, est-ce que j'ai une gueule d'atmosphère? And so you have here a changement from the atmosphere to apparatchik, apparatchik, and then the quotes. Well, if we pass to the conclusion, we see that all these words, seemingly international, must be discussed. It's not an equivalent in England, in English, in French, and in Russian. And this development of sense, this development of the process of assimilation goes now. And we must see that sometimes we find a factor like with Trump and the pulse, a factor that make us remember other words for the translation. One of the amusing thing is to translate Russian words from English or French into Russian. Normally, they are so different that we must change them. and to put some kind of changing names, not having the form of Russian words. I propose you to make such a discussion in Russian to prepare the mind of your students for a good search, for an efficient search of a good form, of a proper form when translating into Russian. Another thing that I would like to show you, it's the idea that any kind of a term system must include some different things. You teach medicine. You, of course, you teach to your student how to translate part of the bodies, I don't know, some health problems, but any doctor must know how to speak law problems and economical problems of his profession. For instance, here, I would like to introduce the Natalia Jabot topic, мультидисциплинарная терминологическая система, МДТС, having a very special idea. It's indeed a medical field, but it's not at all medical terms that you must teach to your students, because sometimes it's ecological, environmental problem, it's law problem, or well, it's some kind of social problem. For instance, for zootherapy, it's just, I do not know if it helps, but it helps, it does help. And I propose you to introduce, before translating, such glossaries. You can do it yourself. Here I show you the only one root radical, most of all, medical radical, because even in Russian we have ligament as ligatura and other words, ligирование сосудов. But normally the ligament, it's сухожилие, связка, and from this word, from a term that your students must know before translating, you can go to other fields of application of this nest of words. As you see, it's not only on the left, as you see, it is medical terms, but here you see an alley, you see a religion, because the root is the same, and even, look, and even this, ligatura in the editing houses, good religieux, as you see on the right, two kind of good cooks, and even an insect with such a name, religieuse in France. Another thing that you have to introduce before translating, it's of course Latin words, because you know, it's only from the beginning of the 19th century that doctors stopped to write in Latin. Even philosophers wrote in their mother languages, as for instance the 18th century, the epoch of Enlightenment, when everybody spoke French. But in the medical field, you can find a lot of expressions kept in the normal medical discussion. As you see, in situ, in vitro, in vivo, it's clear, it's of course clear that you use it, but ipso facto or sic or sine qua non or vice versa, these words and other words we find easily in medical texts. Well, another thing, it's the social part of this term system. And unfortunately, we had a bad translation into Russian. It was sustainable development as idea. It comes, I think, that it was in the middle of 19th that it was the first such kind of conference, or well, international meeting, when it was it was an invention of this idea of sustainable development. And the French, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish translators have come to the word durable, meaning endure, to be for a long, to be developed long in a long way. Unfortunately, in Russian, it is устойчивое развитие. It's nonsense. It was just this translation of the first meaning, and not a good translation. Afterwards, all kinds of interpreters proposed 10 different translations of the sustainable development. But the document was already written, and we have a term that is not very useful. If you speak about durable, in French, as you see, there are some synonyms of this idea of a sustainable development. In Russian, unfortunately, we have устойчивый, and it doesn't work. For instance, in the ecological faculty of the РУДН University, it was a big discussion during a diploma presentation that we cannot say устойчивый завод. And the other person, the director, the scientific advisor of this diploma, said, oh no, we can say устойчивый завод. And it was a big discussion. If we make a textbook, we must, of course, find some new publications, some kind of discussion in the internet. And what is the idea of Natalia Jabot is to see a connection between the disciplines that are not in connection, but they form this multidisciplinary term unity. Thank you for your attention.